So, why are these terms called subordinating conjunctions? Let's first consider the conjunction part of that name. Conjunctions are terms that join ideas together. It might be helpful to think of conjoined twins, which are twins that are physically joined together. Or you could think of a junction sign on the highway. A road junction is where roads join together. So if you see a sign like the ones here, that lets you know that the road you are on will join with 410 or join with 259. If you're driving around looking for Interstate 30 and you see a sign labeled Junction I-30, you know you're on the right track because that road is going to join with Interstate 30. So if you remember those previous examples, we're using because, if, and when to join two ideas together. Instead of writing the cat sat on the mat, the dog had to sit elsewhere, we can join those ideas together with the conjunction because and write because the cat sat on the mat, the dog had to sit elsewhere. Because is the conjunction that's joining those two ideas together. So why are these conjunctions called subordinating conjunctions? Now, we do have other types of conjunctions. Later, you'll briefly read about coordinating conjunctions, but today we're talking about subordinating ones. And these are conjunctions that subordinate ideas. If conjunctions are terms that join ideas together, subordinating conjunctions join subordinate ideas to main clauses. What does it mean to subordinate? Or what is a subordinate idea? If you consider the prefix sub means below or under. And if you think of a submarine travels below water. Sub means below and marine means water. If you think of the word substandard, something is substandard when it falls below the standard. If we look at the term subordinate, we have the prefix sub and the root ordinare, which is Latin for order. So the term subordinate, in a general sense, refers to something of a lower rank. In the military, for instance, the term subordinate is used to refer to lower rank officers. This means that a lieutenant is a subordinate of a colonel, but a private is a subordinate of a lieutenant. So, conjunctions are terms that join ideas together, and subordinating conjunctions join less important ideas to main clauses. By itself, a subordinate clause is a fragment. It's a fragment because basically you're adding a conjunction and not joining it with anything. It's like you're building your bridge halfway. All you have to do is simply join it to a main clause, and then you'll have a complete sentence. So, to clarify, if we look back to our previous example, we have because as our subordinating conjunction. This conjunction creates the subordinate clause because the cat sat on the mat. Without because, we would have two separate sentences. The cat sat on the mat and the dog had to sit elsewhere. But the word because conjoins these two clauses together. If you add the conjunction but don't join it to anything, you have a fragment. To fix this fragment, all you have to do is join it to a main clause and write, because the cat sat on the mat, the dog had to sit elsewhere. These two clauses are now joined together into a single complex sentence. Now, I'm sure some of you were once told that sentences cannot begin with because. I want you to know that whoever told you that was lying. Beginning sentences with because is perfectly acceptable, and in academic writing, this sentence structure is often preferable. The person who advised you against beginning with because was worried you would make this mistake. Because the cat sat on the mat, period, the dog had to sit elsewhere. The problem is that the first part is a fragment because it's simply a dependent clause by itself. It needs to be attached to the main clause. It should not be separated from the main clause with a period. Now, this error would occur with any subordinating conjunction. if a writer adds a conjunction to an idea without joining it to an independent clause, the statement will become a fragment. Somewhere along the line, some people decided to tell others not to start sentences with because. They felt that this advice would help others avoid fragments. But for some reason, they don't pick on any of the other subordinating conjunctions. No one ever says you can't begin sentences with even though, or with when, or after. And yet, these terms create the same problem as because. Grammatically, beginning sentences with because is perfectly acceptable as long as you join that clause to a main clause. Grammatically, there's nothing wrong with writing because the cat sat on the mat, the dog had to sit elsewhere. Nor is there anything wrong with the dog had to sit elsewhere because the cat sat on the mat. You just want to express this idea in one sentence. You don't want to leave that subordinate clause by itself.